This is Sal, and you are listening to the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast on the BS Podcast Network.
In a world of ordinary fantasy football podcasts, ordinary guys rise up to bring you extraordinary analysis and entertainment. This is the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts Kevin Cotillo, Sal Lito, and Stephen Marcus.
You're as cold as ice. You're willing to sacrifice our love. You never take advice. Someday you'll pay the price. I know. I've seen it before. It happens all the time.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today is Sunday. It is November, I don't even know what day it is, November 19th. This is the FLAFFL House Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Cotillo. I have with me Mr. Sal Lito. What is up, Sal?
I am up. Yes, thank you. Oh, yeah. Well, I kind of fell asleep watching that Raider-Patriots game. I nodded off, so I am up.
I can see why that would happen to you.
Ooh, well, a little day drinking didn't help.
A little bit. Oh, that's always a good sign. That laughter you hear would be Steve Marcus. He's here again. What's going on, Steve?
Oh, not a whole lot. And at Sal's age, every time he gets up, it is a blessing. So
Wow.
I'm just happy that you're here tonight, Sal.
Oh,
30 seconds into the podcast.
Ever want to just punch somebody right in the dick? I mean, if I ever see this guy, if I ever see Steve in person.
On purpose?
Yeah. If I ever
Maybe
see him
on
in
purpose.
person, I'm going to pretend I'm so old that I pissed myself, but only it's going to be pointed in
What?
Steve's direction.
What?
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna
wait,
pee
now
on you.
this has gone way off the rails. We're not far in here. This is what happened. Is it because there was a game in Mexico today? Are we a little off? What's going on?
I was going to do a really bad Mexican accent, but that's not right.
No, that's not good. Don't do that.
I passed on it.
Did you drink any Coronas?
No, just Bud Lights today. I was agreed to rip a floor out with a friend of mine, and we ripped that floor out pretty quickly, and there was plenty of times for cerveza.
See. Steve, what'd you do today?
Wow.
Anything good?
Yeah, I just watched football. It's Sunday. So I watched football. I watched my falafel team finally come to life. Much to Kareem's disappointment, I unfortunately...
Chagrin, if you will.
Yes, I absolutely crushed him, and I feel bad about that. I love Kareem.
No, you
but
I can feel that. I tell, totally.
hey,
No, Kareem's a great guy and all, but I'm actually, I was giving you crap about winning because it hurts me. But I'm happy that you win because I would like for you and I to both win out the rest of the season and not have to worry about relegation.
yes, that would be nice.
That would be nice.
That would be...
This relegation's an angry tactic. It's not nice. It makes people feel bad about themselves and their teams.
Yeah, it's rough.
And unfortunately, our good friend Rob is the one that's closest to the chopping block right now.
He's got a couple weeks. He's got, 5 weeks left?
Got lots of time left. Yeah, lots of time.
I feel bad. I apologize to him going into the weekend that I could not let up on him. And yes, I'm up by about 25 in him right now, but I only have Wentz and Julio Jones left.
Oh, is that it?
And he has the Philly defense and kicker, so it's
It's going to be
it's
close.
don't toss up.
That's tight. Yes, Sal doing a great job of steamrolling his way to finishing first and then being first eliminated from the playoffs, so that's good.
He is the Peyton Manning of falafel.
Oh, you sons of bitches. Well, when I'm in there and neither one of you are this year, I'm going to be chuckling as you fight for your lives.
That's all right. We'll all be happy for you. I would like you to win because that would just demonstrate that it's, every other year someone from this podcast will win the championship, which means, the next, 2 years from now it would be my turn, right?
Well, I figured by then we had have added somebody else to the show.
That's fair enough. I can't argue with that. We are going to go through all of the games today, including the beatdown the Patriots put on the Raiders in Mexico, as you just heard Sal complain about the boringness of that game for a Raiders fan. I can see why he would be very bored. But we're going to go through every single game, get you caught up on all of the action and what happened today and how it will impact your fantasy football teams going forward. And we're going to kindly enough let Sal do it again this time around because he did such a great job last time.
The results are in. The people have spoken, and they felt I did an admirably mediocre job and that I should do it possibly again. Yes.
Sadly, the admirably mediocre job was, by statistics, 30% better than Steve's best effort.
That's right. That's right.
Keep trying, Steve.
Hey.
We all love you. All right, well, let's get rolling there. Let's get into these games, right? So the first game up is a division battle between the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. You see what I did there, Kevin? Mexico.
That's nice. That's good. I'm sure we're not offending anyone.
Yeah, that should probably not continue for the rest of the podcast.
I don't know what our numbers are in the Mexican community, but they're definitely going down.
We're very big in Germany.
In fact, my son just turned it off. Anyways, let's go over to the Bears side. The Bears, they lose this one by 3, and this was another game where Bears were up early. I'm like, oh my God, here come the Lions again, like they did with the Browns a couple weeks ago, and they pull it out late. But the Bears, a lot of rookies getting involved today on this offense. First, Jordan Howard continues to show that he's the best player on the team. He's the focal point of the offense, 15 for 125 and a touchdown. But then we have a trio of rookie players. Trubisky, who is, his completion percentage is bad. He doesn't complete a lot of yards, but he doesn't turn the ball over. Oh, that's right. He did fumble a ball that got picked up and returned into the end zone. But Tariq Cohen, he got back involved after we all were worried that maybe we shouldn't be having him in our lineups. 9 for 44 to touchdown. But Steve, here's a guy we talked about a little bit preseason. Adam Shaheen showed up. Is Adam Shaheen a guy we think going forward could be a useful player on a weekly basis?
I think as shallow as the tight end position is, I think that it's definitely something to look at. I think he should be added in all leagues, especially if you're rolling someone out there like a Tyler Kroft or something like that, even though he did well today again. Adam Shaheen does seem to be getting some use. He got 4 targets today, so that was nice to see. You'd hope that he'd get a little bit more, but the Bears kind of are what they are. They don't have a ton of passing targets to go around, even though Trubisky threw the ball 30 times today. I don't think that's typically what they would want to be doing. But definitely, he's, like you said, we talked about him a little bit in the preseason. I know Rob, who we were just talking about, is a big fan of his. He's an athletic tight end, and he can catch the ball. So I would definitely be looking to add him, stash him on the end of your roster. And he's a rookie, like you said. So he's got a lot of upside and starting to have some dynasty value, it seems.
I think we all expected something out of him at some point, next year going forward, because your rookie tight ends take a long time to adjust typically. But he's a big guy, and he was raw anyway coming out of a small school. So I agree with you, though, Steve. Looks like he's coming around a little bit earlier. I was all teed up to try and argue with you about this because he only got 4 targets. But then I'm like, well, 4 for 41 with a touchdown is like a tight end 1. So
yeah,
you can't. It's great.
Yeah, if you could get a touchdown out of your tight end, anything else he adds on to that is usually a bonus because you're already close to double digits at that point. So Trubisky added 53 yards rushing, which was nice to his stats. I don't know that anybody's relying him as their weekly starter. Really nothing else out of any Bears wide receivers. So if you scooch on over to the Detroit side,
Do I have to scooch?
Yeah, scooch. Got to scooch. Just get in line. We're all scooching together. We've talked recently about Abdullah and has he looked better and is he getting enough touches? He really didn't get a lot of touches. My dog is not an Abdullah fan, apparently. Did not get a lot of touches. He did not get a lot of touches today, but he did get a touchdown to make his day look a little bit better. Another guy. So let's talk about the wide receivers here, Kevin. I was worried about Marvin Jones Jr. after last week's performance, and I did not start him. I started Marquise Lee this week, and 4 for 85 and a touchdown. It would have been much nicer. And then Tate. I wrote up in the swim list this week. Tate was on the sink list this week, and it's because he does not perform well against Chicago traditionally. He's been averaging 4 receptions for 33 yards and 1 total touchdown over his last 4 games, and today, 3 for 32. So if you listen to me, you're in good shape. But who on that side of the ball, Kevin, was somebody you were surprised by today? Anybody?
I actually thought Abdullah looked decent. I thought the offensive line was a little better. They started slow, which is clearly, their motive at this point. But they threw up 21 points in the second quarter, so a little better than they have been, because at least they scored in the first half this time. I think the problem with this offense, and Stafford was decent again. Interestingly enough, I don't have any of the stats in front of me because ESPN apparently is having a glitch, so there were no passing stats for ESPN.
Stafford was 21 of 31, 299, 2 touchdowns, no interception.
2 touchdowns, yeah. So I watched the parts of the game through Red Zone, so I thought he looked good. I think he's going to be the most consistent guy. The problem with the rest of them is there is no consistency. You have, on a week-to-week basis, you have no idea whether Tate's going to blow up or if it's going to be Marvin Jones. You have no idea whether Abdul is going to do anything, if Riddick's going to catch a long pass or break one or do something. So you just and God forbid if Ebron actually catches the ball and does something with it. I saw him have 1 or 2 catches today, but not much else. So
he had 4.
4. So you just can't count on any of them. You're going to put some of these guys in your lineup because you have to. Like Tate's a guy I think you're probably starting every week, even though you said to sink him this week. I think most people probably still would have had him in their lineups, even as a sink, because there's just not that many better options, particularly when you're talking about a flex, wide receiver 2 or 3, or even a flex. But these guys are just not consistent at all. And I think that's honestly to Detroit's credit, because they're mixing it up and they're kind of giving what the defense gives them, taking what the defense gives them. But that doesn't help us as a fantasy owner.
So Ebron finishes 4 for 49, but the day's no good because he doesn't have a touchdown, right? And that's the difference with a tight end, because Shaheen 4 for 41 gets the touchdown and the day looks much better. But they've been working Ebron in the last couple of weeks. I think that the break is coming, Steve.
Well, of course. I picked up Fells 2 or 3 weeks ago, so obviously Ebron's going to get turned around now.
I was kind of just a way to get Steve going about Ebron, but anything.
Yes,
go ahead.
I got one last thing to say. Trubisky drove the Bears into field goal tying range, and Barth kicked one of the worst game tying attempts I've ever seen in my entire life. As soon as he kicked the ball, it
was pretty brutal.
Screwed off to the right, and it was just not even close as soon as he kicked it. That was rough. So, unfortunate. But I also think that Chicago, seeing as they were up 10-0 in the first quarter, to see Jordan Howard end the day with only 15 carries when he seemed to be running the ball pretty well is kind of weird, because they seem to run the ball quite often even when they're losing. So, yeah, I just thought that was a little odd, but that's all. That's all I got.
All right, well, let's move along to Jacksonville and Cleveland. It's like, who's the best player on Jacksonville this year? Anybody want to say it real quick?
Jalen Ramsey.
No, yes, the answer was their defense, Steve. So to say Jalen Ramsey is excellent, because their defense put up 27 points today. I believe Kevin had them in his lineup. And is that what you got out of them, 27 points, Kevin?
I'd have to look, but I believe it was somewhere in that range.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. So let's go look at the offensive numbers over there. Leonard Fournette does play. He does get 28 carries. He finishes with 111 yards. But, guys, he's not right. That leg is not right. He came out on the sideline, was limping around again. I don't know, man. I think that this guy needs some time off. This team has a legitimate shot to make the playoffs, and I think that they could probably win on the defense with some other guys filled in right now, and I think maybe they should give him a rest. Steve, what do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would agree. They're in a spot right now. They're in the division lead. They are in, so they've got themselves a playoff spot, like you said. They need to make sure that if they actually get into the playoffs, that they are at full strength and he is healthy. And absolutely, I think they should give him some time to rest up, because, like you said, he doesn't look as good. He doesn't look like himself on the field. He's on the sideline limping around at points throughout the game. So I definitely would not have an issue with them sitting him out for a game or two to get that ankle right, so he is ready for the end of the season push. And if they make it into the playoffs, he's ready and good to go. No reason to have him continuously, putting himself in further danger of having something happen where he ends up missing the rest of the season, when they could just take a few games out right now and let it get right.
So here's the problem, though, Steve, that they're not really in cruise control, and I don't think they can be yet. And I agree with you. It looks like he needs to take a couple of weeks off and get right, but they're at 7-3 with the Titans one game behind them at 6-4 in the division, and then a number of other teams, which are theoretically in the hunt as far as a wild card spot with what, 4 or 5 weeks left. What are we? Week 11. So there's 6 weeks left in the season. I mean that's not like it's not like they're cruising to the division win already. They got to play.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, but their defense is playing so well that I think that just because Leonard Fournette sits out, that automatically means that they're going to lose that game. I think that they've still got a really good shot to win a lot of games because of how good that defense is, and if Blake Bortles isn't turning the ball over as much, it's just like Denver a few years ago with their defense, and just keep them in the game when Tim Tebow is running the offense and they're winning games and crap like that.
Ew.
I know, terrible. So, I mean,
Well,
I absolutely agree. They're not in cruise control. They are not guaranteed a spot. But just because he sits doesn't mean they're automatically going to lose those games.
I mean, the good thing for them is I just pulled up their remaining schedule, and it's promising. They have the Cardinals, the Colts. They have a tough one against the Seahawks. And then they have the Texans, 49ers, and then they finish with the Titans. So not exactly a horrible schedule to end the season. So maybe they can afford to give them a couple weeks off.
Yeah, while the Seahawks are a good team, they've suffered so many injuries now, too, especially on the defensive side, that they've kind of come down to earth a little bit. I think that the Rams, even though losing today, that's going to be tough. Seahawks will probably still make the playoffs, but I don't think they're as good as they were 3 weeks ago. Bortles, surprisingly, throws 30 passes today, only passes for 154 yards, and there's no real day from any wide receiver in the Jacksonville offense to speak about. Mercedes Lewis gets on the board again. I was very close to putting him on the swim list this week. I did go with Tyler Kroft. He does get an early touchdown, then doesn't do much after that, but I did see an interesting tweet. I believe it came out from Matthew Berry that said, here are the list of tight ends that have more touchdowns than Mercedes Lewis this year, and it was just Zach Ertz. So he had that 3-touchdown game against the Ravens, but I think he's had 3 additional touchdowns on top of it. So, throwing a dart and figuring out which week Mercedes Lewis is good is probably difficult, but he did do well today. Let's skip over to the Browns. We're not scooching, we're skipping, Kevin. And, I mean, is there anybody here that did well today? I mean, Duke Johnson Jr., maybe. Isaiah Crowell.
I missed my boy Corey Coleman was 6 for 80.
Yeah, I saw a really bad drop by him in the game, so I'm going to say he sucked because of that drop. 6 for 80 for a guy who hasn't played in weeks.
Just say he's been on the IR.
Don't yell at me, damn it! I'm trying to agree with you.
All right.
He did well, but the offense just looked. It's an ugly offense. Kaiser did not play as well as he had played in recent games. So then jump into it, Kevin. Tell us about Coleman. Tell us, is Coleman a guy that is back now for the stretch run for the fantasy playoffs?
No. I mean, this team is so bad. You're right. I mean, you can't count on Coleman, but I just thought it was nice. I mean, for dynasty purposes, he's a guy that I still like going forward. And I think if they ever figure out their quarterback situation, which will most likely be another rookie next year, but he's a guy that had talent that I liked coming out in the draft, and it's nice to see him come back. He is, if you are struggling and still somehow making the playoffs, if you're in that type of position, he is a guy that's going to get volume. I mean, there's no question he's going to have targets because they don't have anyone else to throw the ball to. So he got 11 targets, and I got to imagine that'll probably continue for the rest of the season. So there is that at least. I mean, I just don't know what kind of production you're going to see on a regular basis.
Steve, you have anything you'd like to add about Cleveland before we get the hell out of this crap?
Duke Johnson's better than Isaiah Crowell. It's over.
Hey, remember when Isaiah Crowell had a good game and everyone thought he was back?
Yeah,
it's fun.
That was fun.
That was fun.
All right, well, let's move on from that crap fest to what it was even a bigger crap fest, and that is the ugly display that went on in the Baltimore Raven Green Bay Packers game today. The Packers are, I guess they were already probably dead, but now they're buried. They are atrocious without Aaron Rodgers. Brett Hundley, who I thought was getting better on a weekly basis, just epically failed today. There are no statistics. Oh, I'm sorry. Devontae Adams had a good day, 8 for 126. Outside of that, I mean, maybe Jamal Williams, but I wasn't comfortable to start him. Steve, were you comfortable starting Jamal Williams in this game today?
I put him on the end of a few benches where you have a few extra flex spots, but no, I wasn't I wasn't looking forward to the matchup. The Ravens have been very good against the run, especially since they've gotten their defensive tackle back from an injury. He made a big difference, and so, he had 18 for 57, not bad. The 4 for 38 in the passing game, to see that's kind of nice. But, yeah, I wasn't thrilled with the matchup for him getting his first opportunity to get going here. And, yeah, I agree. Brett Hundley has just absolutely killed Jordy Nelson. He had 2 catches for 24 yards on 6 targets, which is decent, but definitely should be getting more. He had his first catch in the first drive of the game for them for 17 yards and had 1 catch for 7 yards for the rest of the entire game. So definitely hurting him there, and it's kind of this whole entire offense, one that you used to be able to rely on every single week. You can't do it anymore. Devontae Adams, I think you can feel comfortable. He's kind of shown to have a connection. That's the word I'm looking for. A connection with Hundley. We've seen that for a few weeks now, so I'd feel comfortable rolling him out there. But I don't know if you can start Jordy Nelson with any confidence anymore.
I know some people grabbed Devontae Mays thinking, maybe he's going to have a role in the offense, and he had 3 carries for -1 and a fumble. And I don't think that he got much playing time after that. So, keep your eye on this going forward. Jones is out for a little while, and Montgomery is dealing with issues. So if Montgomery does not come back anytime soon, I guess you could consider Williams on the RB2 radar on a weekly basis just because of the volume alone. But it's an ugly scene over there. Kevin, jumping over to Baltimore.
I'm jumping this time, huh?
You got to scooch, you got to shuffle, you got to jump, you got to do a lot of different things. You hop, you skip.
I'm jumping.
Team wins 23-0. You're like, all right, so we'll go over here. There's got to be stats on that side of the ball. But, God, the stats over here weren't that good either. And if not for a touchdown by Alex Collins, who I started in FLAFFL this week, his day looks atrocious at 20 carries for 49 yards. You got to love the fact that he got plenty of volume, and we were worried about that with Woodhead coming back. And Woodhead gets 5 for 21. But, what's going on with Collins? He's been producing at a good per carry rate all year, and then we get this going on today.
Yeah, I think it's a blip, right? I mean, you said it. He's been producing at a solid rate all year long, and then we see something like this where the 2.5 yards per carry average. I mean, the touchdown salvage is today for fantasy purposes, so that's good. I'm glad for you in FLAFFL that worked out. I actually benched him in a couple of leagues because I didn't love the matchup anyway. Green Bay's been pretty decent against the run for the most part this year, so I think it's one of those games where he's just the offense as a whole they weren't great. I mean, despite the 23-0, the defense carried this game for them. Mike Wallace gets a touchdown as well, but overall there just wasn't much to love. And I think that was kind of just the way it worked out. I don't expect to downgrade Collins going forward, but I also don't know that he's an every week start anyway. I think you should be playing matchups with him. So if they have a tough defense, that they're playing against, I think he should be on your bench. So, he's a good back. I like the kid. I think that the volume's great, and I do think that he will be productive as long as it's a good matchup.
Yeah, and to your point, this is the second game in a row where the highest scoring player was the defense. So Baltimore put up a 23 spot in ESPN scoring in this game. And guys, Mike Wallace is still alive and playing in the NFL. 4 for 56 and a touchdown, but not a guy at all this season that's been reliable and that you could lean on. No wide receiver really has over there. So, Steve, you got anything you want to add to this game?
No, with Danny Woodhead, his first game back, getting the 6 targets, turning those into 5 catches and 21 yards. Would like to see a little bit more out of that, but first game back, nice to see him just step back into that role and kind of get back on track. But Alex Collins also had 7 targets in this game, so we know that Joe Flacco likes to check down to the running back, so a lot of targets to go around for these guys. I think they are the 2 that you can rely on going forward if you had to pick somebody from this team.
All right. Well, I mean, it looks like there was a lot of ugly games early in a 1 o'clock hour here on the East Coast, and this next one started out pretty crappy if you're a Miami Dolphin fan. It didn't finish great for you, but it got a little bit better. And guys, Jay Cutler. Do you think he got an actual concussion in the game, or you think somebody like one of the defensive players went over and hit him on the sidelines to get him out of the game? Because three interceptions, some of them were just awful. And it's back to Jay Cutler looking like he just doesn't give a crap. Moore comes in and passes 17 for 28 and 282 yards and a touchdown. No turnovers, but the offense looks better. Kenny Stills gets deep for a touchdown, and they had a shot at another touchdown. I believe they actually got in and it got called back to Fasano. That called back with Matt Moore. But is it time, Kevin? Let me ask you: is it time for them to go with Matt Moore now? I mean, they've fallen 2 games below 500, I believe, after being a little over 500 for a good portion of the season. Should they salvage the season or just go forward and see what they have with Matt Moore at this point?
What's the point? I mean, do you remember what Matt Moore looked like when he started the game? Do you remember that? Because everyone seems to love Matt Moore when he doesn't play or when he comes into a game. But when he starts a game, he's absolutely awful, and he reminds you that he's a backup for a reason. Matt Moore's not a great quarterback either. They paid Jay Cutler to come in and quote-unquote salvage the season, but that's not working. This season's just about over. I don't think it matters which one they put at quarterback. I mean, Jarvis Landry is having a great season. I don't think it makes a difference which quarterback is playing for him to continue that. I think maybe if you're a Kenny Stills owner, it seems like he has a better connection with Matt Moore than Jay Cutler, so maybe that helps you. But I can't even guarantee that. Devontae Parker had a down day, but had an up day with Cutler, so you take a hit there. Honestly, I really don't think it matters. One way or the other, this team's going to be up and down from a fantasy perspective. You're not going to know, outside of Jarvis Landry, who's going to get what. You can't tell between the running backs, Kenyon Drake or Damian Williams, which one's going to have a good week because they use them both interchangeably, it seems like. So this team's a mess from all aspects. So unless you have Jarvis Landry, I would stay away from it completely, and I don't care which quarterback they start.
If I'm a Dolphin fan, I want more in there, and I don't disagree. I'm gonna friggin' talk. Give me a second.
No,
I don't disagree with. I don't disagree with the points you made, but Moore doesn't get an extended opportunity ever. Okay, yes, he did start that one game, and he did not look good in that one game. Give him some time to get into the offense and get steady, and get a few weeks of consistency under his belt. And Jay Cutler sucks. I don't care that we paid him $10 million. I don't care. I don't want to bet.
This is an honest question for you. What does it help them to see an extended look at Matt Moore? It's not like he's a rookie. It's not like you don't know what you have in Matt Moore.
I think
and when you get to next season, you're talking about either Ryan Tannehill or a new quarterback anyway. Matt Moore is not the answer.
Because the season's not completely out of the realm of possibility to be salvaged this year. I know they're 4-6, I think now, but it's still a possibility to win games this year. Jay Cutler doesn't care. He didn't care in Denver. He didn't care in Chicago, and he doesn't care in Miami. Matt Moore at least gives a crap. So if I'm a fan of this team, I want the quarterback that at least going out there and I could tell gives a crap about playing each week.
They should play your dog. Apparently he gives a crap.
Yeah, and he was nice and quiet and asleep in the kitchen. And my son decides to come down, leave the kitchen light on, and wake him up. And now he's back, and then leaves the friggin' room. So anyway, it's good to have kids and dogs, and hooray for families. Steve.
Yes?
Let's go over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
All right.
So Steve doesn't have to skip, shuffle, jump, or anything. He just goes over.
He's going over. Kevin, I'm trying to...
Respectful.
I'm trying to get you to be a little more active, buddy. I know you're locked up in that place and you don't have a lot of room, but just trying to get you.
I appreciate that. I mean, all right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm just gonna go right to where we need to go here.
He sucks.
Tight ends. He sucks.
Oh, I thought you were going to talk about Doug Martin. I'm sorry.
I'm not going to talk about Doug Martin because he does suck.
Okay.
And
O.J. Howard.
We're going to talk about the fact that O.J. Howard goes 3 for 52 and a touchdown, had another one called back. And this is 2 or possibly 3 weeks in a row, Steve, where Cameron Brate doesn't get a lot of opportunity. So what's going on over there?
It seems like the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Buccaneers favors O.J. Howard. That's just what it is. Like you said, it's been a few weeks now, and O.J. Howard has slowly crept up in targets, and I don't understand how he just gets left wide open all the time. Another catch today, just no one around him.
Left wide open. He's talented enough to get open, unlike your boy Cameron Brate.
No, those blown coverages.
Constantly blanketed.
Blown coverages for sure. Had to be. They had to be. But no, it seems like he's taken over. It seems like he's getting more involved in the passing offense, especially with Fitzpatrick under center. And, if he's going to be getting touchdowns, which is what's important for tight ends like we've talked about, you have to definitely start considering him getting into your lineup as you were doing with Cameron Brate. So it's definitely the shoe has flipped. Shoes on the other foot. Shoes flipped.
So to be clear, then you're saying there's rumors now that Jameis Winston may start next week. He may be ready to go. If that's the case, are you saying that Cameron Brate will flip back into the lead tight end spot there?
I would lean towards that. Yes. Because that is what we've seen throughout the most of the season. That when Jameis Winston in there, Cameron Brate gets a lot of work.
It's only Fitzpatrick. It has nothing to do that he's a rookie that's starting to find his form. All right.
Nope.
Cool.
Well, Fitzpatrick turns in a decent day, 275, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, and the Buccaneers have a big 2-game winning streak. Mike Evans 5 for 92. It's an okay day. It's a steady day. And then really nothing else outside of this team. We spoke about Martin. He's been bad for a few weeks in a row. Another 2-point per carry game here, 19 for 38. And then that's it. You don't really see the other running backs, Rodgers and Sims, get one carry each. It's there's nothing beautiful going on here in Tampa Bay, but they have managed to win 2 games against some bad AFC East teams in back-to-back weeks. Let's move over to finally some good teams playing each other. 2 teams that came in first place in their divisions, surging. They were both surging, and the Rams were the ones that came up short in this game with the Vikings. The Vikings defense played better, and they stopped the Rams short in this game. And Steve, yes. Todd Gurley gets a touchdown to salvage his day, right? But 15 for 37, 3 for 19. Ugh, it was an ugly day. It was like old school Todd Gurley here.
Yeah, and you have to kind of expect that. They're on the road. They're playing up against Minnesota, another team that was 7-2, just like they were heading into this one, and they've got a really good defense. So for him to get the touchdown, which he got early on in the first quarter, I thought that meant that maybe things were going to open up for them a little bit. But Minnesota tied it in the second. Things kind of slowed down quite a bit, and he just obviously wasn't getting any room to run. They tried. They gave him 15 carries, but just was not happening. So. Yeah, thankfully he got that touchdown. We've seen what this offense is on a regular for many weeks now, 10 weeks. So I'm not going to be benching Todd Gurley. I'm not worried about it. I think better days are ahead. He had a tough matchup on the road in Minnesota. I'm not worried about that at all. What I would be worried about is Robert Woods, who turns in another good game. He has 8 receptions for 81 yards, but he ends up being carted off the field. They saw him in the locker room with his arm in a sling. They're saying it's a shoulder issue. That is about all that is known right now. But with how good he's looked over the last few weeks, it would be a shame to lose him going forward in the rest of the season.
I started him this week, so you're welcome.
I was gonna mention that Kevin. We discussed that the other night if we were comfortable with him being a weekly starter yet, and I definitely agreed I was not. And then he comes out and puts up like Steve said. 8 for 81. The targets are there. The production is there, but unfortunately he suffers an injury. Jared Goff has come a long way. He doesn't get any touchdowns in this game. He also doesn't turn the ball over, but he can't do enough to get them in the win column in this game. And you know what? They're already performing well above where I think anybody thought they would be this year. So to lose this game to a very good Vikings team who is really, really trying to assert themselves overall in the entire NFC conference, is nothing embarrassing to do about that. And if we just walk, let's just walk over to the Vikings.
Just a slow walk or a fast walk or speed walk?
I know.
What am I doing?
Just I know you had knee issues in the past. I don't want you speed walking.
All right.
We see the quarterback starting for the Vikings, Case Keenum, who there was been rumors about them switching to Teddy Bridgewater. He was the starting quarterback at the beginning of last season for those Los Angeles Rams. Keenum he doesn't have the huge game that he's had in recent weeks, and I had him actually on the sync list this week, and he has an okay day. He has a 17-point day in this game. Depending on your scoring, it's something in that neighborhood. Should they just stop all this Teddy Bridgewater talk? It probably should have started in the first place. The team is now 8-2. Why would you mess with chemistry, and why would you continue to talk about that? And I think it's going to go away, but I mean, it really should at this point, right?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I don't think you change quarterbacks on a winning streak. But I don't think it's going to go away because I think we know that Case Keenum's not. Actually, I guess I shouldn't even say that anymore. I was going to say we know that Case Keenum's not the franchise. They could go with him next year. All three of these guys are free agents. Him, Bradford, and Bridgewater are all free agents at the end of the year. They could literally pick any of the three if they want to, to sign it for a long term. I think it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater, which is the reason why I think this talk's not really going to go away. But you're going to need to see Keenum really struggle in order for them to make that kind of move. So I'd be hard-pressed to find a situation now where he's going to. I think last week I still thought there was a chance that if he played poorly, he might still have a quick hook. I don't know that they can do that right now. This team's just playing way too good, and he's playing very efficiently and effectively, and I don't know that you can go to Bridgewater, because if you go to Bridgewater and he struggles, I mean, Keenum's show you can kind of bounce him around and he'll still play well, which is good, but I mean that's not going to be a good situation for anyone. So
I think your point is absolutely correct, is that they want to look at Bridgewater this year to decide if they want to re-sign him. Like you said, All three guys are free agents, and if they don't get Bridgewater back on the field and see how he healed up and if he could actually still be an NFL quarterback, and the words out of that the practices are that he looks better than he did before he got injured. But again, that's coach speak and all that stuff. So I do believe you're right that you'll still continue to hear some stuff like that. And I think it would be better for Keenum, but Keenum's had to deal with this type of talking. Last year it went back to Goff, and eventually they made the move to Goff. So he's a guy who's gotten used to that. He's a journeyman quarterback. So another thing we talked about the other night is Adam Thielen now the wide receiver one in this offense, and he asserts himself again today into that conversation, Steve, to say, I am. Look at me, 6 for 123 and a touchdown. He's become absolutely more reliable than Diggs, and we all know that Diggs has that big playability, but Thielen seemingly has it now too.
Yeah, I would absolutely say he's that wide receiver one. He's getting more targets. He is consistently available as he's on the field and healthy and out there playing. And when he seems to catch everything. He did have a pretty bad drop today, but he just seems to catch everything. And like we saw in the 65-yard touchdown run, he can make a move and get loose and blows up and has another great game. He just is, like you said, consistent, and he's a high floor guy, and he's just there every week in and week out, getting it done. So yeah, I'd absolutely say he's the wide receiver one there now.
All right, Kyle Rudolph has a nice day, 5 for 58. Diggs 4 for 32. Really not much else going on in the passing game. But if we look at the running game, this is the second week in a row where Latavius Murray's looked good. We had a conversation the other night about McKinnon or Murray this week. I thought it would be a Murray week mostly because of touchdowns, but 15 for 95 is a great number. McKinnon gets plenty of touches, 14 carries, only produces 48 rushing yards, does get 5 receptions. So in a PPR league, that was a nice total. But Kevin, are we starting to see a shift more to this being Murray's backfield, or because the touches are so equal, it's just going to be a matter of who has the bigger week on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that either one of them is going to run away with all of the workload. I think that they're comfortable using these guys in a tandem, which makes it a little difficult. I think, surprisingly, Murray has more of the upside for that reason you mentioned. I think the touchdowns really make it. He's going to get those goal line carries. For the most part, when they're inside the 5, Murray's the guy that's in, and that's how he scored, I think, on both of the touchdowns this week. So he's the guy that's going to be there, and that gives him a little more value, in my opinion, which is crazy when we talk about what McKinnon did for the first few weeks that he was starting. But yeah, McKinnon obviously makes up for it by being much better in the passing game. So I think you could see these guys being flex-worthy, both of them, and then you get lucky if one of them does something like Murray did today and pops for 2 touchdowns.
All right, guys.
And by the way, Sal, just one more thing real quick. I just want to mention that you keep mentioning that we talked about all this stuff. We had a pretty good show earlier last week. Like, I don't
Yeah,
know
if you're not listening to the Thursday preview show, you're missing out because as much as I like to tease my good compatriots here, we do our research and we touch on topics and we try to talk about all the different guys and not always the same players that everybody's talking about on the other shows. And I think we cover everything. So, and I here's a great question for you guys. So, on the draft app. So if I was going to set a lineup this week in a draft app, Kevin, and I could pick any one of the Philadelphia Eagle running backs, so LeGarrette Blount to Jay Ajayi to Corey Clement to Wendell Smallwood, just tell me which one of those guys would you have picked, and which Philadelphia Eagle running back do you think just scored the first touchdown of the game?
I'm going to go ahead and say it's Wendell Smallwood because he's the guy that I started in John Bosch's Power Hungry League.
The correct answer was Kenyon Barner.
Wendell Smallwood is actually inactive tonight.
So all those guys started an inactive guy. So
listen, here's just
tanking in that league, so that works.
Just to we don't tanking's frowned upon. It's a productive struggle. But first of all,
okay.
just so you know, I originally had Gillisley in, who was a late scratch. And Smallwood was my only other option, who also apparently is inactive. So,
my point is, it's so ridiculous, all the running backs that they have there, and Kenyon Barner is kind of a name nobody thinks of, and it's actually being reviewed, but he's scooted in. So let's say you have any one of these Philadelphia Eagle running backs on your roster. That means your team on a weekly basis is just rolling the dice. So you might want to go over to the draft app and draft a new team every week, because as we know, and we're into week, is this 11 or 12? It's 11, right?
11.
We're into week 11, and the injuries have mounted at a pace that it's just insane. Every year it seems it gets worse. The suspensions, the guys who just aren't good enough. And Jay Ajayi got traded, so you went out and grabbed Drake, and then Sal puts Drake on a swim list, and Williams goes out and has a great game. So you got to get on a draft app on a weekly basis and draft a new team, because that team you drafted 15 weeks ago that you were all excited about, it sucks. It sucks. And the only way you're going to win money this year is if you go on the draft app each week and you challenge a guy like Steve or you challenge a guy like Kevin. Don't challenge me, because I think I think I stopped playing everything altogether at this point.
Except for FLAFFL, you'll stop playing that when the playoffs roll around. But you're right about the draft app. It definitely is a good way to forget about your season-long troubles and get into the weekly stuff. You can set up so many different types of play. You can set up different different sizes of weekly leagues. You can set up different styles where it's head-to-head, or you can do, expert, where it eliminates the top players at every position for you. So you have to really dig deep to set your lineup. You can set up any kind of money amount that you want. So it really gives you the option to customize everything, get it all in there, and draft a team, which is something I like, because with a lot of the other daily sites, you're picking based on a salary and yada yada yada. You got to do math. There's lots of hard work involved with that. Whereas the draft app, it's the snake draft. It's exactly like you've done it for your entire fantasy football life. You go in, you draft a team, and you're ready to go. So I love it. I think it definitely helped my horrible FLAFFL season get a little bit better. Steve, what about you? Are you feeling better? How's your money list right now?
Oh, they're just fine, thank you. Just fine. And, well, like you said, it's a snake draft. You don't have to worry about ownership percentage. If you have the first pick in your draft and you draft Ricky Seals-Jones, he is yours, and you get all those touchdowns. So it is everything that I've wanted out of a daily fantasy app. I love it.
All right, so if you want to play the draft app, you should go to iTunes or Google Play Store and download the app. It's Draft. It's easy to find. It's very user-friendly. Or you can go to playdraft.com/falafel, and you can download the app that way. If you deposit $10 and you use playdraft.com/falafel, or you use the promo code falafel, that's FLAFFL, when you sign up on either of the apps, you can get a entry into a free contest next weekend. They'll get you in there right away. So deposit $10, get into a free contest, and then use the rest of that money to challenge Steve and double it up, because it's pretty easy to do. You challenge Steve, you double it up. It's almost guaranteed.
All right, guys, let's talk about easily the best game of the early slate and probably the best game of the day so far, and that is the Washington football team playing the New Orleans Saints. And Washington.
Hey, Sal, before you get too far into this game, can I just dispel the rumors that I don't like Kirk Cousins?
You hate it.
Oh, well, I was going right to you about Kirk Cousins. So by all means, jump in there and talk about it.
I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think that he has, I don't have a problem with him as a starter. He's on a couple of my rosters. I think he's been very good this season. I think that I was correct in saying that he got lucky in the 2 rushing touchdowns that he had a couple weeks ago or whatever. He had a great game today, and I fully support that. I think he was a great start, even against a difficult defense. That has played very well this year, and he had a great game, 322 and 3 touchdowns, which is exactly what you want out of him. Notice how he didn't rush any touchdowns in, because that doesn't happen regularly. So usually he has to rely on his arm, and it's not always there for him. There are games where I wouldn't start Kirk Cousins, but for the most part, I think that he's a very good quarterback. So for all of those people out there that think I don't like Kirk Cousins for some reason, and I get the how do you like Cousins now?
You
just
like
stop
that?
it. Just stop.
Well, let's just say hello to Mike Cave. I believe that this is the guy who mostly says that and does that to you.
Let's just stop.
So Cousins, like you said, 322 and 3 touchdowns today. Excellent game out of him. And this game looked like the Redskins had this game won. I mean, it really did. They were up by 15 points with 3 minutes left in this game and lost it. So this is a good team that probably is not going to make the playoffs this year because they give up leads like this late. They are inconsistent, but it looked like the weapons were out today. We have to address Chris Thompson. He gets a touchdown early, and it looks like he's going to have a good day. Chris Thompson has done really well, gotten a lot of touches, especially when Rob Kelly's out. We know Rob Kelly was put on an IR, but unfortunately, he injures his fibia, I believe it was today, and he is going to join Rob Kelly on the IR. And that's sad because he really was having – I don't want to say it was his breakout year. Those of us who played fantasy, and some of us saw this coming, not to the extent, though. He was a really reliable player this year for the most part. But, Steve, this opens up the way for Samaje Perine now. Like it or not, there's no one in his way. And I did see him get a couple of passes thrown his way, and he looked like he wouldn't know how to catch a ball if he had glue on his hands.
I feel like he's afraid of the ball when they throw it.
Yeah, maybe he was beaten with footballs as a kid. I don't know. Like his parents just fired him at him. I don't want to talk about the Perines like that, but you never know. So, Steve, 23 carries, 117 yards, and a touchdown. What should we expect out of Samaje Perine going forward?
Well, you should expect, some decent production if he's going to get this type of volume, I think. The O-line seems to be getting healthier and back together. We know they had a pretty decent O-line heading into the season, had a bunch of injuries, but that seems to be getting remedied. So, yeah, as long as he can hold on to the ball, as we've seen him have issues with earlier in the season, he's going to have every opportunity to get 20 to 25 carries a game because Washington likes to run the ball when they can. And if he produces well, he had a 5.1 yards per carry today. If he can do that consistently going forward, he's absolutely going to get all of the volume, and there's no one behind him anymore that's a real concern. So it's definitely his job to lose.
Let's go. Let's look at the wide receivers here. Nice games out of a couple of guys. Crowder, 7 for 72. Doxson, 4 for 81. And then Ryan Grant. Is that his first name? Ryan Grant? Did I get that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Good work.
It just felt wrong as I was saying it for some reason as it came out. But 3 for 59 and gets just ridiculously wide open on a big touchdown reception. Who's that other guy that people thought was going to be good this year? Who was a wide receiver for Terrell Pryor?
Out.
Is it? I mean, he's dropped. He's been droppable for a couple of weeks, right? I hope nobody's out there still playing him.
Yeah, he wasn't even active today, so. He has fallen far from the top.
Who else wasn't active today? A certain tight end, Steve.
Jordan Reed.
Oh, and then who gets the touchdown in this game for
a tight end? Not the one it should have been in Vernon Davis, but one Jeremy Sprinkle
The sprinkle.
It's sprinkle.
But Vernon Davis does continue to look good. 3 for 67. He is a tight end one, in my opinion, as long as he's there. You play him on a weekly basis if Reed does not suit up. All right, well, let's go look at the Saints. And Drew Brees had one of his better games in a long time, going for 385 yards. It looked like the old school days with Drew Brees. He gets the 2 touchdowns. But that didn't take away from the fact that this offense still runs through these running backs. We've been talking about that for weeks now, Steve. Ingram only gets 11 carries, but he goes for 134 yards and a touchdown. And Kamara, only 8 carries, but he gets 42 yards, and then receiving, he adds another 6 for 74 and a touchdown. Both of these guys are running back ones on a weekly basis, and Ingram is like the guy right now. I mean, is that am I wrong about that?
No, you're not wrong about that. And, you know, I think there were a couple of us on here that kind of knew this Mark Ingram type of season was coming. You know, we had the preseason rankings that we did, and I think Kevin and I had Mark Ingram ranked pretty high. And it's just nice to see that he's finally getting the opportunity to be that guy. And even, like you said, on a short, not a lot of volume, 11 carries, he is doing a ton with it. He gets into the end zone again. He is becoming just as reliable as they get. And, yeah, Kamara, it's awesome to see what he's doing as well. He had a great catch where he bumbled, caught it, and it went up in the air, and he caught it again and ran into the end zone. It was a sweet touchdown. He is fun to watch. This offense is fun to watch right now. And I'm sure Michael Thomas owners might be a little upset that he still hasn't gotten into the end zone, not getting those touchdowns like he was, but that should change going forward. But, yeah, this offense runs through these running backs right now. And, it's good. It's fun to watch. You can start these guys every week.
Hey, Steve, did someone not have Ingram ranked?
You know what's funny is I had Ingram in the top 24, I believe. But it's funny that Steve tries to pretend like he didn't have Peterson ranked. Steve did have Ingram up high, but he pretends like he didn't have Peterson still ranked up there as someone to be successful.
Yes, I did.
So I don't know why we're going to continue the charade, but clearly the 3 running backs there together were not able to be successful, and the Saints saw that, made a great decision for all parties involved, and for the most part, it's worked out. We'll get to Peterson not having a good game today, and he was on my sink list, so I kind of felt like that was coming anyway. So Peterson, as I said, well, we'll get to him when we get to him. But Kevin, Ted Ginn Jr., 6 for 87. Clearly better than Sammy Watkins, right?
Oh, obviously. There's no question about that.
Both of those guys are hit or miss guys. Watkins had a couple of consistent weeks and then didn't have a good week this week. And Ginn had disappeared for a week or two. But I just like to bring this up. But Kobe Fleener, 5 for 91. Holy crap. Drop him immediately. They'll not do any of that again the rest of the season. Anything else, guys, that you want to add in about? No, Hill got in the end zone, 1 for 3 and a touchdown. Anybody else you guys want to talk about before we move forward?
No, let's go to the barn burner.
Yeah, let's move.
Let's get to the biggest offensive game of the week.
So my best friend is a big New York Giants fan, and he's in Montreal right now traveling. He's a musician and he works, and so he doesn't get to watch the games as closely or follow everything as closely. But he sends me a text yesterday that says it was something like the Chiefs 41, the Giants 14. And I told him, I think 14 is a bit of an exaggeration and just a pipe dream for you guys. And goddamn it, I was right. Because the Giants,
that's right. They couldn't get to 14.
They scored 12 points, but my goodness, this was the absolute worst offensive day of the season for the Chiefs. Everybody got in on the interceptions today, even Travis Kelce, which I didn't understand that play at all. But Alex Smith, 230 yards, 2 interceptions. Kareem Hunt, he gets some yardage later in the game, 18 for 73, but it's been weeks since he's gotten to the end zone. A lot of people are thinking, why didn't I sell high on him? Because you don't sell high on a guy who starts off his career with 3 phenomenal games. You presume it's going to happen all season, and that happens. Now everybody's trying to jump off the ship. Kevin, what went wrong with this Kansas City offense today against a Giants defense that has been brutal?
It's a friend of mine I hung out with yesterday, and we were talking about the Patriots, and we were talking about their role and or the road that they might have if they were going to get to the Super Bowl again, and yada yada yada. And my friend brought up the Kansas City Chiefs and said, they're going to be a tough team to play, and I kind of laughed and I said, no, I'm not the least bit concerned about the Chiefs. They've looked good, they've played really good, but it's Andy Reid and it's the Chiefs. And they will find a way to screw this up because that's what they do. And you just see this offense turn into something that I think a lot of us may have expected they'd be more like this, not this bad, but more towards this end of the spectrum coming into the season, right? An offense that doesn't score a ton. And, I mean, no one expects Alex Smith to throw interceptions like this and turn the ball over as much. But I just, Kareem Hunt started off so great, and now with him coming back down to earth and being, a normal back, they don't have the offensive weapons outside of him and maybe Tyreek Hill. Obviously, Kelsey's a phenomenal tight end, but I don't think that's enough of a set of weapons to really produce the way they have all season. You and I talked about this, Sal, on some show somewhat recently because the question that got brought up to me is whether or not I thought Alex Smith was a top 5 quarterback the rest of the way, or maybe we even talked about this on the show, and I don't think so. I don't think he's that type of guy. I think he's played out of his mind, and he really has command of the offense, but it's just not going to last. And I think today you see more of what they are. Forget how bad the Giants are. I think Kansas City will always be the type of team that will find a way to shoot themselves in the foot, and that's what they did today.
So you mentioned Travis Kelce. He has the 8 for 109. No touchdowns from this offense today, so there's really very little else to talk about. Over on the Giants side, Sterling Shepard, we thought that this would be a big week for him. I had him on the swim list, and then he gets the migraines. You can't predict that coming, and he doesn't play in this game. So that was a bummer because this was a good matchup against a Chiefs defense that has just been more than giving to wide receivers this year. And then you look over and no wide receiver really stepped up and had a good game here for the Giants. But look at these names: Lewis, King, Rudolph. Who are these guys? Even Raymond. I've never heard of any of these guys. Ingram, the tight end, who's been a really consistent target. He only catches one ball for 9 yards, Steve. That's a guy I know you like. You should feel comfortable going forward, Ingram, and not worry about this performance, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is, the wind there was a big issue. They said it was 20-mile-per-hour winds, and we know gusts.
It was 35 at some points.
The what?
30. It was got up to 35 at some points.
Yeah, so that definitely played somewhat of an issue. But yeah, like you said, all the pass catchers, no one receiver had more than 3 catches. I think Sterling Shepard, when he plays, and Evan Ingram are the guys that you're going to want to get in there. And then Orleans Darkwa, if you're desperate, he's looked pretty decent the last couple weeks, but the Giants have also been in the last couple of games. So I don't know if I would be very looking forward to that, to putting him in my lineup at all. But yeah, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, that's it for this team, and that's all you want.
I'm starting to think Doc was more than a desperation play, though. I think that he's starting to, he's starting to rear his head in RB2 conversation for me, personally. But Kevin's here. He's going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with you, actually. Yeah, I think Dark was going to be serviceable because he's clearly getting the volume, and he's a decent running back. So he's also a guy in dynasty formats you might want to take a look at. If a lot of people will sell on him. I sold him actually because it's just a team that I wasn't expecting to go anywhere, so I didn't need him for this year. But now I'm kind of regretting it because maybe he finds a role somewhere, whether it's with the Giants or somewhere else, because he's a decent little running back.
What's fun about Kevin's new setup and everything is like when he clicks on his mic, it's like Darth Vader's coming. So I know he's here before he actually says anything. So that's a lot of fun.
I'm not even going to try to do a Darth Vader thing. It's not happening.
All right, let's move along to the last game of the early slate, and that is the Cardinals and the Texans. It's the battle of the backup quarterbacks. In this one, the Texans win out 31-21. On the Arizona side, On a swim list this week, I had originally written it. I spoke about this the other night. I put Drew Stanton in there before he was basically ruled out. But I had put a note in that the matchup is there. Start Gabbert anyway. And Gabbert has, he has a good day. The 2 interceptions hurt you, but 257 and 3 touchdowns. He was a serviceable quarterback today. I think what it says is going forward, if you have a quarterback matched up with the Texans, it's a premium matchup. 4 weeks in a row now, they have given up big, ridiculous touchdown numbers to quarterbacks. Larry Fitz, most of this came early in the game, and I thought he was going to end up having a colossal game. But he finishes 9 for 91 and a touchdown, and we know that he got a contract extension this week, and he's going to be back next year. So that's got to make people really excited, because just watching this guy play and perform at his level, at his age, is a lot of fun. And let's get to the guy, the man of the hour that Steve pointed out earlier today. Steve, Seals-Jones, number 1 waiver ad this week, correct?
No. If you've never heard of him before today, don't go and add him instantly and pull another, what was it, Rashard Higgins earlier this year? Everybody went and added him after his one game, and then what happened? What happened to him now? I think he had zero catches on 2 targets today. So, no.
What's the water boy today?
Do not go pick this guy up. They still have Jermaine Gresham there, who had, he only had 1 target, but he has been pretty decent the last few weeks. I would not be going and picking up Ricky Seals-Jones. No.
Kevin, rest of the season. Ricky Seals-Jones, Trey Burton. Go.
Yep. I'm gonna go with Trey Burton.
Felt way too long about that.
Yeah, no, because they're both useless. So
The youthless.
Youthless. Yes, that's my Tyson impression there.
Hey, let's go over to the Houston side, and Tom Savage has I guess it was a serviceable day. 230 yards, 2 touchdowns. He continues to find DeAndre Hopkins. There was people talking about not playing Hopkins in this matchup this week. I didn't understand that. I was out having a couple of drinks with a buddy of mine during this game, and he even told me that people were talking about not doing that. Why? Why would you?
He only got 9 targets this time.
It's a regular, normal size amount of targets, but we've talked about the targets that has been used. And so even though that they were down in this game, you put this guy in on a weekly basis. Don't be stupid. The big note in this game is that Deonta Foreman was looking really good. 10 carries, 65 yards. He scores the touchdown that essentially salts the game away and injures his Achilles on that. And at this point in the year, with an Achilles injury, he's done. Kevin, that's a shame. But what does that mean for Lamar Miller going forward? Who also, he got 22 carries, just 61 yards on his carries, but added to 4 receptions for 22 yards and a touchdown. Is Lamar Miller going to be that much more comfortably to use for you on a weekly basis now that a guy like Foreman is going to be out of the way?
I don't think you would have stopped using Miller anyway. With Tom Savage, Foreman's seems to get a little more work for whatever reason, but so maybe there's a slight uptick. But I wasn't benching Lamar Miller anyway, because he was still getting good volume. He's still the guy for the most part they were using in the passing game. So overall, I don't think that it really changes his outlook too much. You might get a little more volume here, and maybe that that helps a little bit, but I don't think it makes much of a difference because, again, you weren't benching. Well, at least I wasn't benching Miller. So,
Steve, are we adding Bruce Ellington? I had to do it first thing this morning in Scott Fishbowl. I opened up my roster and I realized with injuries and bye weeks, I had 2 startable wide receivers this week, and it's mandatory to start 3 over. And I was like, oh boy, let me go to the waivers. Let me see what's available. And Ellington was right there at the top of the list, so I scooped him up. I dropped Brent Selleck, who I picked up last week for the spot start, and 6 for 50. Whoa. I can't speak. 6 for 63.
Yes.
In a PPR was a good game. It was over 12 points in a PPR. Is this a guy we should get onto our bench?
I think you can add him to your bench, but once Will Fuller comes back, whenever that ends up being, his value is definitely going to take a hit. But we've seen now that, in a PPR type league, that he can be serviceable even with Tom Savage under center for the Texans. So, yeah, I definitely think that you could pick him up. At this point of the year, there aren't many guys that, this guy had a lot of hype heading into last year on when he was on the 49ers, and then he got injured and ended up missing the entire season. So he's somebody that's been on people's radars before. Seeing him have this type of production should definitely lead some people to add him and get him on their bench.
All right, we're moving into the 4 o'clock games or the later in the afternoon games, where depending on where you live. And let's start with the San Diego. Oh, sorry, they don't play there anymore. The Los Angeles, where the better scoring team in Los Angeles, Chargers, who put up 54 points against
the Superchargers.
San Diego. I like that song. You can't even sing it anymore.
I know. Sad, right?
The Bills, who are just, the decision-making over there continues to amaze me. 24 points out of this offense today, but most of those points came after they finally benched Peterman, who completed 6 passes to his team and 5 to the other in this game. Brutally bad. Tyrod Taylor comes in and ends up having a decent fantasy day, considering he didn't start the game, because he rushes 4 times for 38 yards and a touchdown. He passes for 158 and a passing touchdown, and ends up having 17 points in a regular standard ESPN fantasy scoring. Kevin, LaShawn McCoy. This is a game you remember from LaShawn McCoy. This is the type of game that makes you love LaShawn McCoy. Is he back?
Sure. We'll go ahead and say he's back. I don't know that you can guarantee it. Yeah, I mean, LaShawn McCoy's great. It's just for him, it's all about whether or not the offensive line can do anything and he can get any kind of hole to run through at all. And when he does, you see what he does with it. Is he's phenomenal if he has any kind of room. So I think this offense has been terrible. And we talked about it as far as Peterman starting, and I think I don't think it was a terrible move. I mean, obviously they wanted to take a look and see what the kid could do, and luckily it only took a half to figure out that he's absolutely terrible, and you know now you don't have to worry about it going forward. But I don't hate the move. I don't think this team was going anywhere anyway, so I think it was fine. I think Tyrod Taylor's a better quarterback, and I think that I don't know why they don't want to stick with him going forward, but they have clearly shown that they don't. So. It was nice to see him come in and kind of get retribution. He didn't fumble every play like Steve said he should, so that's a good thing. And I mean, is anyone not starting to get back to your original question? Is anyone not starting LaShawn McCoy anyway? I mean, who cares? He's either back or he's not. You're going to put him in the lineup, so. Of course. I'm just saying, he's had some lower totals in recent weeks, and this was a nice game. He's phenomenal. But to your point, if you're above 500 in the NFL and you're in week 11, you have to you have to do everything possible to continue to win games, because you have a shot at the playoffs. We've seen teams make the playoffs at 9-7. We've seen teams make the playoffs at 8-8. So while I don't think Buffalo's on a level of a New England in that same division, or some of the other teams that might be in second place in other divisions that are fighting for wild cards. To me, I didn't understand not trying to continue to put your best foot forward and make the playoffs. Well, my point is, and Steve, obviously, we had this discussion. So, Steve, I know Steve disagrees. What does the first round of the playoffs get you? What does a playoff game get you? You go on the road and lose in the first round. Great. So it's your first trip to the playoffs in 20 years or 25 years or whatever the hell it's been. That's a big deal for crappy teams. I don't think it is. I'll tell you two things. And you don't realize that these things mean a lot to a town, a city, or whatever. New England's been in the playoffs for so many years in a row. Spoiled with this. Buffalo has not been in the playoffs, I believe, longer than any team in the NFL. Is that what the stat is? I don't know what the stat is, but that's correct. It's been forever. So that's meaningful to fans. It does mean something. But Kevin, you get into the tournament, as they call it sometimes, right? And then anything can happen. I don't think anybody thought that the Texans would have won the first-round game last year, but they end up drawing the Raiders with an injured Derek Carr, and they win the first round. They go into the second round, and we've spoken before. They gave the Super Bowl winning champion Patriots everything they could handle. If they had a better quarterback, I think they would have won that game. So But that's a better team than Buffalo is.
But you get only so many chances to play in the playoffs. There's only so many chances to do that.
My point is, I think they want more than just one chance. And I think seeing what this kid has and figuring out their long-term plans, the idea is to get into the playoffs regularly, not just once, and then that's it.
But the NFL turns over every year. Every year.
Here's the real question. Do you think that Peterman, they were just teaching him a lesson and he'll just start again next week?
What? What? If they start Peterman next week, I would start Jim Kelly next week over Peterman.
Yeah, no. I don't think they're teaching him. I think the kid, clearly is overmatched, and they got their answer, and they should just stick with Tyrod for the rest of the season. My point is, like I said, I think Tyrod's better. I'm not going to kill him for the move because I don't think it's really that bad of an idea to try out your rookie quarterback who's been good in practice and who looked good, at the end of the last week's game. So.
Well, let's go to the Chargers side and let's talk about. I don't think anybody's talking about this. I'm gonna break some news here. There's got to be.
Do we have like a sound clip or something? Can we play
No, we don't have all the high. We don't have that kind of budget.
Oh. Quarterback controversy?
Should there be a quarterback controversy? I mean, Clemens completed all of his passes in this game.
5 for 5.
Impressive.
5 for 33 yards. I'll tell you what the real controversy is for me. Echo, stop stealing Gordon's touchdowns. Stop it, jerk.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some anger.
I agree.
Melvin Gordon, 20 for 80 and a touchdown. They seem to throw the ball to Keenan Allen at the goal line a lot today, which kind of pissed me off. Those were touchdowns I was hoping would go Melvin Gordon's way because I don't own Keenan Allen anywhere.
How many touchdowns did you want Gordon to have?
7.
Oh.
That's not bad.
Would be nice. But
that's nice.
Let's look at his state from Keenan Allen. I mean, it looked like old school Rivers and Allen connected. Kevin, 12 for 159 and 2 touchdowns. That's nice.
That was nice. It was the old Keenan Allen. I don't know if this offense is just cruising along today because Buffalo's terrible, or if it was just what. But hopefully it'll continue because it was really nice to see Allen get that many targets and receptions again and really put them to good use and get in the end zone a couple of times. It's nice to see him have a big day again.
Steve, is there anybody in this game we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about?
No, not really. The tight ends for Los Angeles are
brutal.
Yeah, I mean, Hunter Henry, everyone loved him coming into the season. I know I was an Antonio Gates fan, and that has not turned out very well, but neither of these guys are doing anything, and so I don't know how you can feel comfortable putting Hunter Henry in your lineup at all right now until you see his usage go up quite a bit. I mean, he had 2 for 25 on 5 targets, but it is not what we were all expecting, and there just seems to be better options out there so far this year.
All right, well, before we get to the ugliness of my favorite team, let's go look at Steve's favorite team in a matchup with the Cincinnati Bengals. The Broncos lose 20-17. Andy Dalton passed for a measly 154 yards, but 3 of those completions landed in the end zone. And A.J. Green gets in there. Erickson?
Told you guys to start Alex Erickson.
John Ross cannot get an activation, and Erickson is catching touchdowns, 2 for 42 and a touchdown. And Tyler Kroft, he does have the touchdown, but only 2 for 12. Joe Mixon, Kev, got 20 touches today. Well, actually, he got 22 touches, but 20 carries and 49 yards and no touchdowns.
He's good. Yeah,
we're just
he's
gonna have
good.
Can we honestly, going forward, it's A.J. Green, right? And then not a single other player in this offense?
No, that's it. You could start Tyler Kroft. I mean, he only got 2 catches, but he gets the touchdown, and that's a tight end 1. So, I mean, I guess Kroft is okay, but that's it. Yeah, just and even A.J. Green, 4 for 50, but he gets the touchdown this time, so at least it helps. But even A.J. Green's down. This whole team sucks. They just suck. They're not good. They're not good at football.
So, well, let's talk about another team.
And somehow they beat the Broncos.
Well, the Broncos can't get out of their own way lately. I mean, it's bad. It's very bad. Ass washer. I don't know what I want to call him. Asswasher starts his third straight game. You know that they're going nowhere with if they're going to continue to roll him out there. Lynch, clearly that was a wasted draft pick at this point. They're going to probably have to go and draft another quarterback next year. Steve Booker, it's possibly the first time this season where he out touches Anderson 14-13. It was close. Anderson does get the touchdown early. What can you do with these running backs on a weekly basis, Steve? Early in the season, it looked like Anderson was a guy that we were going to be able to rely on. That's clearly not the case anymore because if he doesn't get the touchdown, it's 13 for 37, and you're wondering what the hell's going on.
Yeah, you can't really trust either one of them right now, but it does. If you're watching the game, Devontae Booker does look like the better running back right now. So I'm wondering if in the next coming weeks they start to lean on him a little bit more, and they use him a little bit more in the passing game as well. So I would look for that to happen, but until you get a little more clarity on that, I would not be starting either one of these guys. And it's just sad. It's sad to see what's happening to my poor Broncos. Brock Osweiler is not the answer there. Paxton Lynch, he has been dealing with an injury lately, and he is getting healthier, so I also would not be surprised if at some point they, when he is able to start a game, and I think they will do that. I think they'll have him get in there. They're 3-7. They're in last place in the division, and they aren't going anywhere. So they are a team that can start a quarterback that does not. They don't have to win games, and they can legitimately see what they have. And yeah, that's it. And I hope they get Kirk Cousins next year or Tyrod Taylor, please, pretty please. That's just what I want.
Tyrod Taylor, you could probably get handed to you, but I think Kirk Cousins. I mean, if Washington doesn't do the right thing and secure this guy, I mean, it's gonna be something they look back on and regret. They should have done it already, regardless of Kevin's feelings on him. And that's a joke, Kevin. So let's just say this going forward. Same thing with this team. I think Demaryius Thomas is probably the one guy a week you can feel comfortable starting, and nobody else. Even Emmanuel Sanders is a guy. There's no room for them to support two wide receivers in this offense right now.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, can't argue really. Emmanuel Sanders did have the big game against the Patriots. He didn't, So there are weeks that he's going to pop, but you can't count on it.
All right, well, let's round these games out with one that was so much fun for me. I passed out on the couch watching it. The Patriots traveled to Mexico to take on the Oakland Raiders in what was considered a home game for the Raiders, but I heard plenty of people cheer for the Patriots as they continued to score over and over again and beat down the silver and black. Let's get the we got it the first time, buddy. All right, let's get the terrible Raider stats out of the way first, so we could go back to the other side. Derek Carr, 237, one touchdown, one interception. Marshawn Lynch had his longest run of the year of 25 yards and only finished 11 for 67.
How's that working out for them?
Well, it's not working out well. He's getting paid and he's getting to play in his hometown. Well, unless he's from Mexico. That's not true. There's nothing going on. I mean, Amari Cooper gets the touchdown, but only 3 for 28. Michael Crabtree, 6 for 51. I saw a drop or two out of him. Nothing else. Jared Cook, 2 for 36. It's nothing here. There's nothing. Even the other running backs, the younger guys, 2 catches, 12 yards, 2 catches, 9 yards. Let's just stop. Let's just go over to New England. And let's talk about Tom Brady put up 339 and 3 touchdowns. And he spread the ball around to 3 different not wide receivers, because Deion Lewis got one of those in there. And, it's just kind of like a ho-hum beatdown day, Kevin, for the New England Patriots.
Yeah, this is one that they just they started off hot and then just kept it rolling throughout the game. You're talking about 30-0 was it going into the fourth quarter? So tough day overall for the Raiders.
We got that 2-point conversion.
Yeah, that was beautiful. It was beautiful. The Patriots defense looks like it's. I mean, look, I know that the Oakland offense hasn't been rolling this year. We've talked about it several times. It's really not in sync the way it was last year for whatever reason that they're struggling. I don't know if it's Derek Carr or if it's the offensive line or the run. The running game is just letting them down. Whatever it is, they're just not in sync. But this is the 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th straight game now that the Patriots defense really has looked solid, and their offense is always going to roll. It's going to keep going along because there's just so much talent on this team offensively. The problem, from a fantasy perspective, is you never know what it's going to be. A lot of people were putting Rex Burkhead in their lineups this week because of the big game he had last week, and then this week he gets you 5 carries, 16 yards, and 4 catches for 21 yards. So you're talking 37 yards in total. Just not a great day for him, and that's going to make it very difficult. Dion Lewis is clearly getting the volume as the running back, so I think he's a guy that you can safely start. He didn't have a great day today. He only got 60 yards, but I think he's the one you can most safely start. In PPR formats, usually you'd say James White, but he didn't even get a catch this week, so obviously they didn't need to throw to him too often, but not much else to say. That it was good to see Brandon Cooks have a big day. I think that's one of the things that we've talked about, though, is that you're not going to see that every week out of him. He's a boom-bust guy that some weeks he's going to be phenomenal and some weeks he's going to give you nothing, very T.Y. Hilton-esque, if you will. And this was a good one for him.
Hey, Steve, remember when Kevin promised us 15 touches out of Burkhead? What a jerk.
Yeah, that was rude.
I was rude.
Started
I apologize.
in my DraftKings lineup today.
I mean, he got 11.
It's not good enough.
So, and I believe I said 10 to 15, so that would be within that window.
Well, he got 9. Your math sucks.
Way to aim high.
Yeah.
He only got 9.
No.
He missed your window.
No. He had 6 targets.
I didn't say. I said touches. If you don't catch the ball, it don't count.
Oh, for Christ's sakes, let's just go. I get it. You're bitter that your team got.
You know what's? I knew the Raiders
crushed.
season was over in week 4. I said it on this podcast and another podcast. I've been done with that. That's why I play fantasy football.
We're very behind here.
Oh yeah,
Let's
we're
keep
so
moving.
behind.
Steve, finishing
Look at that
thoughts.
sloth on that commercial.
Wow.
Played Pictionary.
That was-
Good stuff. Anyway, yeah, thank you guys for listening to this episode. If you're still listening to this episode of the Falafel House Fantasy Football Podcast, you can check us out on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And, of course, you can go to falafelhouse.com and find all kinds of goodies there. So check it out. Sal.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We're behind. Kevin?
Yes, we are very behind. So thank you for listening. Leave us a review somewhere, anywhere. I don't care where you leave it, but leave us a review and add some charity to your fantasy football experience. We will be back with you on Tuesday, I believe. So until then, Steve, hit the button.